It was a busy week in New Japan. Super Junior Tag League is in full swing with a compact schedule. We learned that an old friend is coming to Osaka with the announcement that Kenny Omega will appear at Power Struggle this weekend. We found out which Stardom worker would step up to Great Khan's KOPW challenge, and the answer makes perfect sense. We also got the sad news about the health of El Phantasmo. We'll review the week that was and preview Power Struggle on this Halloween edition of the show. With Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This is Speaking of Strong Style. Welcome, everyone, to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the news, issues, and events surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you are listening as a podcast and I sound a little muffled, I am wearing my Mystico mask here for Halloween today. But Jeremy is Luigi, and we're in the spirit. How are you feeling, Jeremy? It's been a week of a lot of shows, but some good wrestling and a lot of news.
I gotta say, we popped each other a little bit with our costumes. I am. Oh, the mask is coming off. I was gonna wonder if it was gonna be the Iron Man podcast. You go in an hour with this mask on. You are not going an hour with this mask on. You are done.
Well, the issue
but we got
is
a good intro.
The issue is I can't hear very well through the mask, and I sound muffled through the mask. So basically,
yeah, it does sound like you have a pillow over your mouth, and
it's basically non-functional as a podcasting technique. So wearing a lucha hood for a podcast or a YouTube show, maybe not the best move for a long-term thing.
So, yeah, my wife is Mario. I'm Luigi, and
nice.
The dog is Bowser right now. So we did a little of that thing and went to work, did the whole deal. And now it's time to talk some New Japan. A lot of junior heavyweight tag team action. A lot to digest.
And it's been an exciting tournament. I've really enjoyed most of what I've seen so far. In fact, the two shows at Korakuen Hall this past week were wonderful. I mean, just really good match after really good match. And we will go over all that. But, let's take a look here at something else that has come up. We're going to get right into this because, it is Halloween. We do have a lot to get to. But the big announcement of the week wasn't even about Junior Tag League. It was about Power Struggle, and it wasn't even a match for Power Struggle. But we found out that Kenny Omega will be at Power Struggle at Edion Arena in person on Monday. So we're going to be seeing Kenny for the first time in a very long time in a New Japan ring. Of course, we expect him to be part of Wrestle Dynasty with Tanahashi, possibly against the Young Bucks. We don't know that for sure, but that's where all roads seem to be leading. And basically, we're on a bit of an angle alert here, Jeremy, or is this simply come out, wave to the crowd, and say hi?
I think what they're doing is priming Kenny to be around a little bit, not a lot, but not just, oh, hey, there's a video package and I'm showing up at the Tokyo Dome to wrestle Will Ospreay this year. They're investing a little bit more time into this angle because, it's New Japan driving the Wrestle Dynasty card, and it sure does feel like Kenny Omega and Hiroshi Tanahashi might be main eventing this thing. At this point, with the emphasis that they are putting on this match. 2 months out, the most that we got of anything right now is Hiroshi Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom and Hiroshi Tanahashi at Wrestle Dynasty. So it's hello.
War Hero 99's with us. He says, welcome to the family, Luigi. And where's Jeremy? I don't know. Well, hopefully Jeremy will do it, but Luigi's filling in.
But so I think it's just we're not getting Kenny wrestling until January. Okay, right. That's the deal. Maybe it's Evil not takes him out and does some kind of thing, and it kind of forwards that. But it's just Kenny coming back, and it's not Omega, or it's not Okada, and it's not Ospreay. It's the guy that they can bring back that's fresh for that stuff. And I'm going back and forth with this. We've gone over and over again.
Okada and Ospreay aren't
but
fresh.
It's just Okada is the guy. Oh no, Omega is the guy that you should emphasize right now. He's a guy, and they're going to do the victory lap with Tanahashi. It all makes sense. I'm glad he's coming back. I don't really think they needed him for Power Struggle. I was going to be watching the show anyways. But hey, it's a nice little addition to everything.
Yeah, it is. And he's training in Japan. He's been in Japan for a while. I think he's working with Kota Ibushi over there and working out and things, getting himself ready for Wrestle Dynasty, or what we hope we hope to see him there at Wrestle Dynasty. He's been out for most of the. I mean, has he wrestled in 2024 at all? Like, when did he go down?
Kota Ibushi?
It was very, huh?
Kota
No,
Ibushi
not
or
Kota.
Kenny?
I mean, Kenny. Kota ain't coming. Kota ain't coming to Wrestle
Might
Dynasty.
have wrestled at the beginning of the year. He might
Yeah,
have had a
very
couple of
beginning. Yeah,
matches.
it's been a very, very long time.
But no, he is not. He is not. No.
Colin is here. Good to see you, Colin. Glad you're with us. So we will have to see how that whole thing turns out when he goes to the Edion Arena, if there is an angle or if it is just simply a little promo and a hello to everybody. I mean, either way, it's nice to have Kenny Omega anywhere near pro wrestling again. It's just been so long.
Absolutely.
And, so good news there. So, we have that. And then we got some sad news also is El Phantasmo is out indefinitely. He posted on his social media first, and then New Japan commented on it. He said his doctors have found a small, what he termed, this is El Phantasmo's term, a small cancerous tumor. He said the doctors are on it. He said in his post that he's not too worried about it at this stage, but you hear the word cancer and nothing's a small deal when it comes to that. So we wish him nothing but the best. And he's been on this show. He's a friend of ours He's a friend of our show. And we're big fans of El Phantasmo. So with that in mind, we're just hoping that this is indeed something that can be taken care of and that it was caught early and the doctors can fix him up. But he is out indefinitely. And he is not taking part in Power Struggle or any scheduled matches at the moment going forward, playing everything by ear. He will be replaced by Bolton Oleg or Oleg Bolton, whichever way you want to use if you want to use the Western or Eastern naming system. But either way, it'll be Bolton filling in for him both on the 2nd in Nagoya, where they have a preview tag, and in their match with Evelyn Ren Narita at Power Struggle. So that is Bolton taking his place in those matches. And Jeremy, we've gone through this with from our sibling show, Power Bombshells. Sam has been public about her fight against cancer there. She had another surgery this week, and we wish Sam nothing but the best and the quickest recoveries. And
I'm going to fill in to do my part. I'm going to jump in on the show and Power Bombshells this weekend just to kind of help out and cover the spread with Mel. So yeah, I'm gonna power bomb my way into the shells of the Power Bombs.
And there you go. All right. Well, that'll be Sunday here on the Fight Game Media Network. And mostly, though, we just want El Phantasmo and Sam to be okay.
Yeah. Phantasmo put out a note. It came 1-2 punch. New Japan announced it. And then Phantasmo, once New Japan announced it, put out a note. Tremendously positive. They just family, friends, and give thoughts to Chris Bey, who broke his neck in an impact taping. So there's a lot of stuff going on. It's a rough time in wrestling, and I don't mean that in any glib fashion. It's just this is a physical business, and the receipts come due sometimes, and sometimes it has nothing to do with wrestling, and the receipts still come due in life. So best to Phantasmo, best to Sam, best to Chris Bey, best to everyone who is struggling to overcome physical injuries that, were not planned.
Yeah, we haven't seen Chris in a while, but we all really enjoyed his work when he came over for Super Juniors and a couple of other things. And so if you watch Tina, this is a really talented dude. So, but whether he's talented or not, we wish him best of health if he broke his neck in the ring, which is just, I guess, everybody's fear, isn't it? I mean, and sometimes it does come true. We've seen it happen with Honma. We've seen it happen with Otani. We've seen it happen with, unfortunately, several wrestlers over the years. What was it? Yoshitatsu, I think, wasn't it? That broke his neck. And, it's something that's always in the back of your mind. You try to push it out of the way when you're in there wrestling and trying to think of Hiromu, for the love of goodness, but it can happen to anybody. And unfortunately, it happened to Chris, and hopefully he'll be back and stronger than ever. I'm hoping. Good grief. I mean, it's always nerve-wracking, and it just reminds you, especially during Super Junior Tag Team, when you're seeing more dives and flips than you even normally do. It was on my mind a couple of times this week. Everybody came through it relatively safely. I mean, anytime you're in a tournament like this, you get banged up, and certainly you're seeing
Right.
the kinesiology tape budget increase as this tournament has gone on. But it has been on my mind sometimes, these tope con hilos and tope suicidas and 450s and all that, and I'm just like, just please be okay, you know, because Chris is on my mind with that.
Yeah, I'm glad everyone's doing fine. You know, this tournament has been a lot of fun. And thankfully, you know, people have come out of it generally safe. It does make me think about like Jake Lee and a couple of these other guys that have been out that we haven't heard much about. More that we don't hear about Jake Lee, the more I'm worried about Jake Lee. What you don't hear is not great. And it's just, it's a revolving door. And we have to remind ourselves that there's never going to be a fully healthy roster. There's always going to be injured people. And, you know, the scale of who's going to be out in the overlap is always just staggering. So best of luck to everybody. And I hope that we see all of them back in the ring.
Yeah. And you mentioned Jake Lee. Good grief. It's been utter radio silence on him since the injury. So that is a little scary.
I thought I'd catch you off guard when I mentioned Jake Lee. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about Jake Lee. And they've done a great job in just kind of moving on without him, like just taking him out of the plans.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this Super Junior Tag League tournament here. And then we still have Historic Crossover to talk over because we got some news on that. We've got Power Struggle to preview. So we're going to keep things moving here. But we have had a very interesting tournament, and Dunstan here has left some questions, and I want to address one of them right off the bat here. I said, and he says, what are your thoughts on Tag League compared to past years? I think being a 2-block format makes it more unpredictable. I am enjoying the 2-block format, especially because they're telling very different stories with the 2 blocks. And to me, that does it for me rather than the one mass of, 10 teams and 9 matches. So it's a compact schedule. I mentioned that. I mean, this thing is over with on Power Struggle's the finals, but I mean, we're talking Saturday and all the block action's already over, and it's a very tight run thing. And a couple of nights at Korakuen Hall there, they had all the block matches, both A and B. So it has been a quick thing, but I have enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the matchups. I've enjoyed the wrestling. And the fact that they are doing something very different with these 2 blocks has added something for me anyway. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jeremy? Do you like this?
Yes and no. I think the tournament is exactly what I thought it was going to be. In which it also felt kind of predictable. Like the favorites are the favorites. The dark horses are the dark horses, and the better luck next year's or better luck next time are exactly all the guys that we thought they would be at this point. And that's not a bad thing. You should be coming into it with like the DKC, Ninja Mac, and the Velocities coming out with something to prove. Like they're wrestling these matches as if like they're auditioning for the international stage as much as possible. You got the intergalactic jet setters and Catch 2 just trying to like reserve the big spots for when they need it because they've done this before, and like they're a bit more. And so when they're wrestling, you're getting a different style match, but you're watching these 2 together. You're watching the veterans like, slow down a little bit. And you got the Velocities when they're wrestling them just going all out against them. And so you're getting a mishmash of everything. And so it's exactly what I expected, which is great. But at the same time, I think we're trending towards the people who we thought were going to win in the first place, kind of going back in that direction. And so, sometimes you're like, I want to see something different. These are the guys. It's the right thing. But there's also like this, are we going to get like an out of left field kind of thing? And I just don't think that we are out of this. I think it's all kind of been chalked, even if like they've tried to introduce some complexity. But when you only have 6 teams in a block and you're only doing 5 matches, you're basically doing half of a G1, and when you do a G1, the first 5 matches sometimes feel like one story and the second 5 matches feel like a different story. And so you've condensed and compacted like the tournament round robin story into a very tight window.
Yeah. Well, Super Junior Tag League doesn't get the breathing room the G1 does, and it probably shouldn't. I mean, this isn't something that can draw the way G1 does, so it doesn't have the cachet and things. So they're doing basically a little house show run with some Korakuen in there for it. So in Super Junior Tag League, the A block, we have 3 teams on 6 points. So we have haves and have-nots in the A block. Fujita and Eagles, TMDK, they have 6 points. House of Torture with 6 points. And the War Dogs with 6 points. Dragon Daya and Ryusuke Taguchi with 4 points. However, they lose out on tiebreakers. So even if they win their final match, they cannot advance to the finals. And then because they can max out at 6, and they have lost tiebreakers to some of the guys on that already have 6. Hiromu and Bushi, disappointing tournament for them. They've basically been putting people over on 2 points. And Captain Suicida and Tiger Mask sitting at 0. Again, Suicida was here for Fantastica Mania this past year. He's getting more reps in a New Japan ring. And he and Tiger Mask have just been losing out so far. So looking ahead, on Friday, November 1st in Ishikawa, the A block will come down to Suicida and Tiger Mask against Taguchi and Daya. So that's the match there that's everybody's already eliminated. And then we have Fujita and Eagles versus Kanemaru and Sho. So these are 2 teams that are on 6 points. The winner will be in the driver's seat to move on in a way right there. However, the final match is Bushi and Hiromu on the upset special watch against the War Dogs. The reason I bring that up, War Dogs win and they're in. So that's the end of the story. They get up to 8 points. Nobody in those other 2, nobody else on 6 can keep them out of the finals. If Bushi and Hiromu manage to pull off that upset, though, that opens the door for the winner of Fujita and Eagles versus House of Torture. So War Dogs hold the tiebreaker.
There's another little catch in there that you missed. If Ryusuke Taguchi and Dragon Daya win and everyone else loses, well, no, they're functionally eliminated. But they do have tiebreakers over Eagles and Fujita and Sho and Kanemaru. So there's jeopardy for those teams as a result of the victories.
Well, yes, but here's the point there. Even if Taguchi and Dragon Daya win and the War Dogs lose, the War Dogs have the tiebreaker on them, so they go to the finals. So Taguchi and Daya don't have a path to the finals because of
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, so it's basically Eagles and Fujita and Sho and Kanemaru feel like a win and get in scenario, because I kind of think that with Hiromu and Bushi only having 2 points and really just not getting a whole lot of, might end up getting a win on the back end of this tournament and kind of stop Maloney and Connors on the second of the 3 matches of the night. So that Sho and the House of Torture versus TMDK is the final for that night. And, given who they could have on the other side, that could be a 50-50. As much as we want TMDK to win, I've been giving it some thought. And if this team, one of these teams gets to 8, I'm not sure they're winning the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I agree. There are ways. There are many ways this could go out. My early pick was Fujita and Eagles, but there are choices, and none of them are particularly bad choices. They're so it's the team that I would most like to see, but I won't be brokenhearted if it is somebody else. It feels like they're really kind of pushing Fujita and Eagles along here. Kanemaru and Sho, I don't know if there's really a point in sending them to the finals. The only other one that really makes sense is the War Dogs, simply if you were going to just put these guys over as a monster and the champions make the finals against an underdog team in the, it doesn't necessarily have to be the underdog team. It could be the champions again.
Right.
Because the Jet Setters are still involved. But you could just say that the War Dogs are a nearly unstoppable force and they just go all the way into the finals because they're pissed off they lost the titles. That's a story you could absolutely tell and have them win the thing. Just to say this is the benchmark tag team in the division now. You could do that if that's a story you want to tell, that if you want to get those titles or, they become that team that's either the champions or they win the tournament because they're the best team, right? That's the story you could tell with the Dogs. Or you could just push Fujita and Eagles just to get a fresh matchup in there. Either way, I think we're in line for both an exciting final and a good match down the road for the titles. This tournament has made me feel really good about this division. Again, I know that not all these teams are staying. We're going to lose some of them, mostly in the B block there. But in the meantime, I'm going to enjoy it while I got it.
All right, back again to the wall. Who you got winning the block?
I think Fujita and Eagles, and then Bushi and Hiromu pull the upset, and Fujita and Eagles slip through.
Or I'm with you on that one.
Or would that work? Wait a minute. Did Fujita and Eagles beat the War Dogs? Yeah, no, that would give them 8 points. Excuse me. That would give them 8 points. The War Dogs would be stuck on 6. Fujita and Eagles win. Hiromu and Bushi keep the War Dogs at 6 points. Fujita and Eagles slip through. That's what I am hoping to see. If the War Dogs end up going on, I won't complain.
Yeah, I think you're on with that, and I think Tiger Mask and KUSHIDA get one over Taguchi and Dragon Dia, and they finally get some points on the board.
Consolation win for them.
Yeah. Are there any particular matchups from A block that you thought stood out to you, worth mentioning?
Boy,
anything like that?
Yeah, I mean these we've seen so many good ones in this one, but I like what Taguchi and Dragon Dia have done in their stuff. We've gotten serious Taguchi again in a lot of ways, and he's done a little bit of playing in there, but his stuff has been really, really good. A couple of main event wins in that for him. That have been really exciting. They beat Hiromu and Bushi in a terrific match. Eagles and Fujita and the War Dogs was excellent. That
was from the first Korakuen night, the semi-main. That was a great match. Yep.
Yeah. So anything involving Taguchi and Dia with Bushi and Hiromu, I love that. And the Dodan victory for Taguchi, boy, he hasn't won a match with that in quite a while. That was a good time. Fujita and Eagles against Taguchi and Dia was fun. So
I thought Fujita and Eagles versus Hiromu and Bushi was also a very tremendous match.
Yeah. Basically, I would just say if you want to catch it, just go watch those 2 Korakuen Hall shows from this past week. Just great stuff all the way through. 2 terrific.
Here's the other thing that we need to talk about is wasn't in the best of the Super Junior Tag League tournament at all. But it was a random tag in the middle of one of these Korakuen shows. And Ryohei Oiwa and Zack Sabre Jr. versus Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji was probably one of my most favorite matches in a long time.
It was so good. Wasn't it good? I mean, the thing about that match, as I sat there watching it, first of all, I wondered who was going to do the job in it. I started to think, boy, are we just going to go 30 here? But they did not. In the end, there was a big scramble at the end. And Oiwa hit Shingo with the grip, that spinning clothesline right there that cleans him out. But before he could pin Shingo, he took the Gene Blast from Tsuji, and it was not quite a flash pin because he hit his finisher. But it was one of those things where it looked like Oiwa was primed to win the match, and then boom, he gets hit with that wonderful spear that Tsuji has and pinned. An outstanding match, like you said. Here's what I was thinking of after that match was over with. Ryohei Oiwa and Kosei Fujita are from the same Young Lion class. They debuted at the same time. They were on the same trajectory. They both went off on their non-excursions at the same time. Like I mentioned, Oiwa just goes across the street to Noah, basically. Fujita never left. And through their journeys, they have become such great wrestlers that we talk about classes like the, Wato, Umino, Oka class, that one. We've talked about the Reiwa Three Musketeers and how Uemura Uemura has made it a 4th. There were only 2 guys in there, and it's kind of the pandemic class. They kind of came up during the pandemic with empty crowds. But I'll tell you what, I have already predicted that Kosei Fujita is going to be the ace of the junior heavyweight division in 3 or 4 years. Like, he's going to be the Hiromu, the Liger of that generation. I have no problem seeing Ryohei Oiwa being the guy at heavyweight in a few years as well. We might end up talking about this 1-2-man class as the most pivotal for New Japan in this entire era. These 2 guys are so good so early in their careers. And I'm just kind of blown away by how good and charismatic the intangible part of it, they both are. Right? Daiki Nakai has all the intangibles, but these guys are already putting it together with the work. That's what I thought of after this one. We might be looking at the 2 aces.
This was the first time post-excursion that Ryohei Oiwa and Yota Tsuji got in the ring with each other, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
it was awesome. They did it in the beginning of the match, and then they got back together in the end of the match. And right now, that's my Wrestle Kingdom matches. I want those two on a one-on-one, just going at it with each other. And I think that could be something pretty special. Afterwards, after Yoda did the Gene Blast and they pretty much tore the house down with that crowd, Yoda pulls up Ryohei Oiwa and almost does the whole, good job, great effort. You have my respect. And then he just throws him out of the ring. And I'm just I love it. Yes. I loved it. It was like, you're nothing, buddy. And it's just like, oh, we're going to revisit this one. Yeah. And it's slap.
Yes. And that was the thing with the Yoda Tsuji group, those guys were just a little bit older than them, so so they were the junior young lions while they were the senior young, while Tsuji and gang were the senior young lions and just about to go off and do their excursion. So yeah, they'll have that rivalry going as well. Oiwa will say, I took crap off of these guys for however many years pandemic, I ain't doing it anymore. There's all kinds of subtext right there. And Dunstan had a good line here. He said, Oiwa versus Tsuji at a Wrestle Kingdom or Dominion will hit like crack in the 80s. Yeah, that's about right.
Reagan's going to provide it for all of us?
We don't get into conspiracies here. Come on. Good grief.
All right, let's hit the B block.
All right. So the B block. Let's talk about the B block because it is the most simple thing in the world. All 6 teams are 2-2. That no one has separated themselves from anyone else. It has been a really good block in terms of match quality. We'll just talk about the teams, but there is no real. There's not a whole lot to talk about here except that everybody's 2-2. Saturday in Nagoya, we will see the Velocities. That's Paul London and Paris da Silva, who I've really enjoyed in this one. Their athleticism is terrific. They're very smooth as a team. They'll be taking on Robbie X and Taiji Ishimori, who have also done an outstanding job. Robbie is fit right in with Ishimori. I think their styles mesh very nicely. I know Dunstan asked about them. I would love to see Robbie more in New Japan. I liked Robbie before this, so I was happy when he turned out to be the literal X in Ishimori's X team there. And he agrees that they have good chemistry. He feels like they'll get lost in the shuffle since Bullet Club have a junior team already. This is kind of what I've been going for, is that this Bullet Club, the War Dogs, the traditional Bullet Club, and House of Torture are almost separate factions anymore. So it wouldn't bother me but I feel like Robbie's probably not sticking around full time, although I would love it if he did. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it's a dynamite tag team. You have the Intergalactic Jet Setters, the tag team champions. We know what they can do, that they're wonderful. Rocky and Yo, if there's a better tag team wrestler than Rocky Romero, I can't think of him off the top of my head. And we've seen really good stuff out of Yo this tournament. He is certainly leaning into the quirky personality of it, but it's working in the ring as well. Ninja Mac and the DKC have been good. Mac is terrific. DKC.
I've enjoyed Mac a lot.
Oh yeah,
Jeff, he popped me more times than I care to admit, to be honest.
And DKC, I got the karate stuff doesn't work for me. I don't think it looks that good because I don't
riding off a Ninja Mac. All right, he's riding high off a Ninja Mac.
He's better than he has been in the past. In some of his other appearances, he's done better. But I still feel like he's the one guy that looks like he's not quite on this level. Just not quite. And that's the one. And then you have on the other side Catch 2-2, and we know what they are. That's probably for the last couple of years. That's been the best junior tag team.
So this whole bracketing is a mess, and it's all coming down to tiebreakers, no matter how you see it.
Yeah.
And so you kind of have to look at who's the most likely people to make it to the next block action.
Right.
So we got between KUSHIDA, Kevin Knight, and Yo and Rocky Romero.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with the Intergalactic Jet Setters winning this one because I just think the strength of having them go 2-3 as the champions would not be great. So I'm going to say that they win, but maybe they don't get in because of tiebreakers. Mm-hmm. They lost to TJP and Akira and the Velocities. So if the Velocities beat Ishimori and X, that would mean that the Velocities have a tiebreaker over KUSHIDA and Knight and TJP and Akira. That's interesting.
It's interesting, but it doesn't feel very likely, does it?
No, it does not, because Ishimori and Robbie X have tiebreakers over DKC and Yo and Rocky Romero. So if they were to win, they still would not have a tiebreaker over some of the two other favorites.
Yeah.
So Kushida and Kevin Knight could beat Yo and Rocky Romero and be in the driver's seat through the next two matches. If you did the Velocities and Taiji Ishimori after that, and Ishimori and Robbie X beat the Velocities, that would still leave Kushida and Kevin Knight in the driver's seat going into the last match, which would be Akira and TJP versus the DKC and Ninja Mac. Now, if Akira and TJP win, that means they have tiebreakers over Kushida, Kevin Knight, DKC, Ninja Mac, and Ishimori and X. And that would put them over the top with 6 on tiebreakers. I think that's what happens in terms of just the layout. And then given the IWGP title is already on Zack Sabre Jr., and given that we have these strong titles for however much longer, and the IWGP tag titles on TMDK, it doesn't seem like they're going to put the junior tag titles in the velocity, no pun intended, of the or in the vicinity of TMDK, but instead go back to Catch 2-2, which as United Empire's faction is the one most likely to have a title, given Hanare and Jeff Cobb just both recently dropped the titles.
Okay.
And they like to have a little bit of weight around of different factions. So if you were to have Catch 2-2 going into a challenge against Kushida and Kevin Knight, you know, run that back from the first night of the Super Junior Tag League, I think that's a viable direction.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Like I said, I felt like they were going with Fujita and Eagles, but what you just said right there also makes a lot of sense. There aren't a lot of bad choices here, are there? I mean, really, there are a lot of.
You could do either one, and I'm not going to lose any sleep at night. You know, it's like sounds like a great decision, New Japan. Keep it up. You know, you know. We're sitting from the cheap seats talking about this in a lot of ways, but you know, we're paying attention to everything, and it just. There's not a whole lot of wrong decisions, just like King of Pro Wrestling. We're talking about those cards. You could do whatever you want with the outcomes of those matches, and New Japan just feels like it's heading in the right direction.
I really hope Ninja Mac sticks around. I know that he has left Noah, but I don't know what his plans going forward are. He would bring such a fascinating dynamic to that junior heavyweight division, and he would be a very interesting addition. He could be a Hantai guy, you know. He could be somebody like he could be a Chaos guy. He could be a babyface and wrestle that style and have fresh matchups against so many different people that I would really enjoy it. And say he joined Chaos, and when Rocky goes back, because Rocky's not going to be full time over there, then you know he and Yo could be allies, if not a permanent. It doesn't have to be a permanent tag team, but just when you need a 6-man thing, you know, you can do that. He just feels right in these spots. I'd love to see Robbie X more. I don't know if he plans on being in there more full time, and I hope we see the Velocities more. Now, the one thing we saw was the Velocities beating the Jet Setters. What I would also like to see, and what I would recommend for New Japan, is that make that a tag team title match in Tamashii. If the Jet Setters hang that on. Again, let's start weaving these storylines in. Let's not have them be in separate universes like they had been. We saw a win in Australia lead to a title match in Japan. Let's reverse that. Let's say, hey, the Velocities went over there, beat the champs. They get a title shot back in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne. You know, so many choices. But let's do that. Let's start seeing things like that, and I think it will generate more interest in Tamashii. It would force you and I to really pay more attention, because you could go through these Tamashii cards and nothing affected.
You know, I had plenty of time to watch more wrestling. You're absolutely right. It would make us have to watch more content.
Yeah, you're right, but
not against it, but you know, like.
But if you're New Japan, that's the goal, right?
I will make an exception if they will put a title match of the Velocities and the Intergalactic Jet Setter somewhere on the Tamashii. I will go out of my way to watch it.
Yeah, sure, because they were really good. Like the Velocities are really small, so I understand why none of the companies in North America have really grabbed them up yet, because they, even for a junior team, they're small. And that's going to get into somebody's head over here. That's just the way the business is. It matters a lot less in Japan. So seeing them excel in this thing. They're terrific. They really are terrific. So it's been fun watching.
All right, so we're not gonna have the longest show today because it's Halloween and life.
Trick or treaters are coming. Trick or treaters are coming. We're gonna hand out candy here at the new house.
We got a little bit of a lightning round. Should we do the Power Struggle preview real quick and just kind of knock that out as to what matches we know is going to be happening on November 4th, which is Monday? I don't think we're coming back for a live show that day.
No, we're not gonna be able to do that. But here's the key. We know a lot of the matches, but we don't know specifically the order. They have not officially announced match 1, 2, 3. So we'll go over what we know, but keep in mind, not necessarily in the same order. The main event: Zack Sabre Jr., Shingo Takagi. Or do you want to start at the bottom? What would you like? There is no bottom. Really, the point I was making.
The bottom is basically Tanahashi and Bolton Oleg versus Evil and Ren Narita.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That was the ELP match, but he's been taken out. There's no particular steps. It's just a match. And so if Kenny Omega is showing up, it feels like it's going to be after this match in some way, shape, or form. Because him showing up like to jerk the curtain just to talk seems very kind of weird. That feels like a 4th or 5th match kind of thing.
It does, yes.
What thoughts you got? Anything?
No, there are a couple of things they could do with this. Again, we're on angle alert here, aren't we? Because it's Tanahashi and Evil, and they're setting up something for the Tokyo Dome.
I know.
And we also have the television champion in here, who may or may not win this match.
I know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Bolton Oleg and Ren Narita.
You could do that. I mean, there are cards we have to fill out before Wrestle Kingdom.
Yes.
And so, yes, you absolutely could do something like that. And again, if you want to think about the booking, this was going to be Phantasmo. Now, Phantasmo beating Ren Narita and getting a shot at the TV title makes perfect sense. Perfect sense, especially considering Evil and Tanahashi are feuding. So if you're going to go the way of just Hantai versus the House of Torture, you could just slip Bolton into that spot and just say, well, you're going to be the one that gets the win on Narita and challenges for the TV title. And that's what my instincts are telling me on this one.
Yes. I have a question for you.
Okay.
Does Zack Sabre Jr. have an opponent for the Lowell, Massachusetts show?
Do
you know offhand?
So. I don't think so.
Because I think the winner of the special singles match next between Sanada and Shota Umino could be part of that. Zack Sabre Jr. is going to defend against everybody in like a 3-week period and just really come out swinging with 3 title defenses and such right out the gate after this match.
Yeah, nothing screams title challenger like a special singles match winner, right? So this is Shota Umino and Sanada. And I know on English commentary, they are leaning hard on the whole thing of Shota Umino might get booed in Osaka. Now, my Japanese is not good enough to know if I'm working on it, but it's not good enough to know if the Japanese announcers are leaning that hard into it. So Walker and Chris can talk about it all they want, but very few English-speaking people or people that watch English commentary are going to be in Edion Arena. They're pushing it with the idea of if you're hearing my voice, boo Shota Umino is the story that Chris and Walker are telling. Now, if they're pushing it that hard on the Japanese side, then we have something interesting going on. If there's some sort of development with Shota and his reaction to the crowd, so I'll be watching out for that just to see if the Osaka crowd takes the hint that NJPW what they're beaten over the head with from New Japan right now that about Shota. And then, but I do agree that the winner of this one will probably challenge, and we just saw Sanada. So this feels like an Umino win to me, and leading to Shota and Zach at some point. And Lowell, Massachusetts makes an awful lot of sense for it.
So as a complete tangent, I did the New Japan fan club thing where they do the diaries of all the wrestlers.
Okay.
And apparently Shota's story of how he missed his flight to go to Royal Quest because of, as he says, the ticketing booth couldn't get it right. And so he was blaming everyone else for missing his flight, just doing like subtle heel stuff throughout the whole thing. He made the flight, he did his whole deal, like he did the match. But it's just interesting the way that even like he's set up to write the stuff is like he's blaming everyone else for his problems. Just Just interesting.
All right. What's the next match we want to talk about here?
All right. We have an IWGP Tag Team title match between Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols of TMDK and the United Empire's Great-O-Khan and Hinare.
Yeah, and this could be one where, I mean, if you want to do a title switch, you certainly could. But, TMDK kind of feels like a defense to me here, but should be pretty good. Great-O-Khan has other things on the horizon in important spots. He's part of a historic crossover in an interesting way. So I'm kind of curious to see where this goes. But I think TMDK would be the favorites in this one. Should be a really good match, though. Hinare's been wrestling really well. Okan's been wrestling really well. We know TMDK, one of the best teams in the world.
One of these teams is an established tag team, and the other are established single stars that are teaming up to face the tag team. This feels just like giving the team of TMDK some opponents because the tag team division isn't exactly too stacked right now with a number of different challengers. And we're going to see what World Tag League could be like, but we could also see Hinare and Great-O-Khan in the World Tag League being involved in there. It just kind of depends how much the plans for Historic Xover are going to impact whether they want these people doing double duty.
Yeah. And Dunstan mentions, I'm curious how Wrestle Kingdom attendance will be since they haven't announced that many matches for the Dome. Usually they would have announced 2 or 3 at this point. I'm curious too. And I am actually a little bit impressed that I don't know, I'm impressed or worried. I am surprised, let's put it that way, that we are all the way to basically November 1st and we'll go all the way to November 4th before we really know anything more about Kingdom. We just don't know a whole lot. I think that's gutsy. There's only been a match hinted at for Dynasty, but not officially announced.
Just playing in a good poker hand of what it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's. I hope they have something really big planned, and of course, not just because I'm going to be there, but because I'm just like, boy, you don't have as much time to sell this show as you usually do. So, I'll credit. You got to give them credit for guts. They must. I'll tell you what. The fact
they feel good about something.
Right. Yeah, they must feel confident that when they do reveal it, that it's going to be a hit. And so that they must be feeling their Wheaties a little bit right there.
It just feels like a confidence play or a fake it till you make it kind of thing. I do think that the conversation about the Wrestle Kingdom main event is going to be something when they finally reveal it. Whether they feel like it's the right guy for it or if the match is strong enough. They have a number of matches they want to get out of the way before they even get to that point. And I think they have an angle. I don't know. Yeah. They're waiting to pull the trigger on something.
Yes.
It's very, very clear. What that is, I don't know.
And they feel good about it once they do it. They feel like, oh, this is when we do this, it's gonna really pop. It's going to really – it just feels like they are confident in their direction. And so I'm very curious to see what it ends up being.
Like, okay. So if after the Lowell, Massachusetts show, it goes straight to World Tag League. And so we're kind of – Scott Sabre Jr. isn't doing a whole lot until, say, the end of World Tag League and Fighting Spirit Unleashed in Long Beach. What to say that you don't have a hot angle at the end of the Massachusetts show with somebody that's on that card that sets up Wrestle Kingdom after, say, Zack Sabre Jr. defeats Shota Umino? Because I don't think in any realistic scenario that Shota Umino is either going to beat Zack Sabre Jr. or even wrestle him at Wrestle Kingdom.
Right. Yeah, and I think there might be something – I think there could be something at Power Struggle. I think Power Struggle is going to tell us a little bit about the Dome, just because they're going to want to do something big in front of the Japanese audience. They're not going to want to do all of the angles in the United States.
Do you do Kenny Omega versus Zack Sabre Jr.?
I mean, at Kingdom, it sounds more like he's aiming at Dynasty. I don't know.
I hear you.
Yeah,
but
I don't know.
We're talking about, you're saying they might have something really big planned for Wrestle Kingdom, Power Struggle, Kenny Omega showing up to make a statement at Power.
I mean, who's to say the Young Bucks wouldn't be on a plane on Saturday?
That's entirely possible as well. There's a number of things that you can look at here and just being like, are we drawing the right conclusions, or is it staring us right in the face and we've just not like acknowledged it? So I'm introducing the possibility. I don't particularly think that Zack Sabre Jr. versus Kenny Omega for the IWGP title, that doesn't feel right at this exact like crossroads right now. It just doesn't like there's no realistic reason for that. So I'm on my bullshit about Takeshita. I've been on my bullshit about Takeshita. I will continue to be on my bullshit about Takeshita because frankly, there isn't anyone else right now on the New Japan roster. And I'm sorry, I watch every New Japan show that they have built up as a viable challenger for Zack Sabre Jr. right now.
Okay. And after that, we also have the junior heavyweight title on the line, singles title. That'll be Doki and Master Wato. So basically, Master Wato coming back from his injury, Doki is the champion. And I'm just hoping that that Wato is 100% again. He's looked fine in his previews. He's looked good. I do think getting rid of the blue hair has helped. I think he looks a little less goofy. You can take him a little bit more seriously. Doki's a terrific wrestler, so I'm looking forward to the match. Should be a good one.
This one is going to be looked past by people before it happened and then talked about how good it is after it was done. That's my prediction.
And do you feel I'm leaning in the direction of a returning Desperado for Doki at the Dome, just because?
I mean,
something
yes,
like that,
but I would wait for Desperado until after Historic gets over.
Well, certainly. Like I'm just saying that I think that what I mean is that I'm expecting Doki to retain because I think his real money opponent is Despe, a rematch with Despe in Tokyo. Yeah,
I'm with you on that one. I think Desperado is probably figured in for the January plans.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is. If he's coming back in November, I think he can do a lot between them. We will have the Super Junior Tag League Finals. That'll take place at Power Struggle, whoever those teams will be. And and then we have a couple of big title matches on. Dunstan says he thinks Wato versus Desperado is a more interesting bout at the Dome. They could absolutely go that way. Again, it's important. It's important to remember that we got here by accident, which often happens in the junior heavyweight division. I don't think. I love Doki. You know that I'm a big Doki guy. But I also think that if Desperado's knee were okay, we might not be seeing Doki as the champion. I think they just took it off of Despe because he had to take that time off. And then Wato, I think they had huge plans for that before he tore his ACL. So it may be that it's all in the service of getting that course correction back. We're getting Desperado back at crossover. We've got Wato back now. This could be the course correction to get us back to the Dome with Wato and Desperado. Could very well be. But right now, with the history of Doki and Desperado, that's also intriguing to me, since Desperado, the reason Doki even came into New Japan, recommended him to come in. Remember, Jun Kasai broke his jaw, Despace, which is why he even came in the first place and then stuck around with Suzuki-gun. So there are layers of that onion to peel whichever direction you head.
I would say that... Holy shit, I just lost my complete train of thought. Okay, so I would say that Wato and Desperado is something that you can hold off at this point because Doki wasn't planned, but Doki's working. This whole thing that they're doing, they can hold off on Wato for a little while longer. Nothing is urgent with Master Wato.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you can push that out to Dominion and then just run this whole thing back that you want to do with Wato, Desperado when they're healthy, when they're able to get to this rather than, I don't want to say hot shotting, but you are essentially like pulling the brake, turning left, and all of a sudden have a completely different angle and direction for the junior heavyweight title going into Wrestle Kingdom. And I just don't think you need to do that right now. You just invested like angles where you're showing off different kinds of Doki with the Kishin Doki and the different matches and the different kind of things. They're invested in him. They're making like a character out of this guy in which he's got lore. You don't want to do that for him right now because right now you're building up the confidence with the fan base. And if you're to take that away right now, just for Wato, like, you don't need to do it just yet.
I'll give you one other reason I think this is a retention. I mentioned earlier, I think this is a retention. Now, Dunstan's point about Wato is a fair one. Another reason I think it's a retention, there is a history, again, going back in the way New Japan does things, of guys that come back from injury after a long time off.
Right.
And they're not quite ready to win yet. Remember, Hiromu lost a lot of his first matches when he came back from his neck injury. A lot of people, when they're off a long time, they lose that first match back. It's more of a, we're happy he's back, but it's and it kind of makes sense. It's a little unrealistic for somebody to just come back and be their old self immediately in the first match. At one point, even Antonio Inoki booked himself to lose a match after he had been gone a long time, and Inoki never booked himself to lose ever, hardly. Only an emergency. That was a behind the emergency glass thing. It's like you only brought out the Inoki loss once in a while, but he did it after a long layoff. Now, completely different people in charge. I do understand that. But there's a history of even guys with Geto coming back from excursion, being out after injury, even big time guys, and losing that first one back. But the victory is in getting back to the ring and having a really good match and showing that they are back. And I mean, in quotes, like this still a top level guy, maybe not ready to win the big match yet. So and again, that's two steps, right? You can get the happy step of Wato coming back and having a great match. Then you can do, the win later, and then you get kind of two events out of it instead of just the one. So just a thought there. But for the reasons you also mentioned, Doki has just been blossoming in this role right now. He's got Desperado on the horizon. It feels like they can stick with him a little while longer. And then you still have the Wato thing in your pocket. Still do it.
I'm with you on all of this. All right, so we got the global title, right? Up next.
Yeah, David Finlay, he seems to be going through the Just Five Guys group, and with, Uemura down the road a little ways, out with injury and things. But this is Taichi, and I just don't see Taichi winning the global heavyweight title right here. And I think they have big plans for David Finlay in a global title match, either at Kingdom or at Dynasty, perhaps at both. Perhaps a match at each. There's a lot that they can do with. I think there's more that they could do with David holding that title than Taichi. So I feel like this is just one where the heel is going to get another one in on a faction he's feuding with.
It has been absolutely amazing to me to watch how quietly Taichi has been dropped down like the ladder in his own stable. Just very quietly. It's just kind of happened. He is the lowest ranking heavyweight in his faction at this point.
Well, right now, only Taka is behind him, really. I mean, you can argue about Sonata because they beat Sonata quite a bit too, but I think they're about
Sonata challenging for the IWGP title, and Taichi challenging for the global title. So that's where we're at. Yuya is being positioned as like the front guy. Like Taichi is the heater for Yuya.
Yeah.
That's what's happening here. Like this is all like. David called out Yuya. Taichi answered the call. Like, that's what a heater does.
I mean, I agree. Yeah. This is just getting David Finlay as a mean bastard all the way to the dome. That's what this is.
The generational shift of these wrestlers going from top guys to, setting up the next generation, it's happening. And we kind of head in the sand for a lot of people, but it's happening, man. It is happening.
And then we have Zack Sabre Jr. defending the IWGP World Heavyweight title against never open weight champion Shingo Takagi. This is another one. Only the IWGP title is on the line. The never open weight title is not. I think that tells you all you need to know. There's just not a reason to take this off of Zack right now, unless you just wanted to throw a huge wrench into the whole LIJ dynamic, because part of the story we think is coming to the. Well, I'm with you. I'm saying this is a low percentage. When I look at these things, I try to find a reason to go with each guy, and then see which one makes the most sense for the company. The reason to go with Shingo would be if you were going to throw a wrench into the Hiromu Naito civil war, or not civil war, but rivalry going on within LIJ that's coming. That was something that Dunstan mentioned. Like, who do you think would challenge Shingo at the Dome? I think it would be intriguing if they made it just LIJ and it was Tsuji. I think that would be intriguing right there. If we're just going to say we're going to battle it out to see who is the king of this castle, actually. all the guys that aren't protected in LIJ going at one another. That's intriguing. I'm not saying they're doing that, but it's a thought. With that in mind, though, they don't need the world title for that, and Zach kind of does, and should have it. And there are shows on the horizon, and just feels like another really good match that Zach can win.
This feels like legitimately hot-shotting for Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, since October 14th.
Oh. Is Jeremy frozen out, or if I? Hopefully we're still on here. So it looks like Jeremy might have frozen up right there, but that's if I am on the air, someone please let me know in the chat. So I don't know sure if we've totally frozen or just Jeremy did. So, well, either way, it looks like Zack Sabre Jr. and Shingo Takagi. It'll be a terrific match. We know this. Zack, I feel like, is going to be the one to win it, and then he will go on from there. So still, hopefully we can get things back going again here. Did I fall off? Maybe I fell off. Can anyone hear me in the chat? Just out of curiosity. I still have the counter in the upper left, which is why I'm asking. Oh, Jeremy has fallen off completely right here. All right. Well, we'll continue on. There's not a whole lot left in the show. Looks like we may have just lost Jeremy on that one. So, okay. Thank you, Dunstan. I appreciate that. So, yeah, well, Power Struggle. That's Power Struggle there on November 4th. And we'll move on from here. So, we mentioned that Bolton Oleg is going to be replacing El Phantasmo. And it looks like Jeremy is popping back up. Let's bring him back in. Hey, there you go.
My internet just died on me.
Yeah, it sure did, didn't it? I thought it might have been me too. I was because I
was watching. I'm like, oh no, this is all me right now. This is terrible. Okay, so
I'm in the new house, right? So I'm not totally sure what all this internet does and all that. So I thought, oh crap, did I freeze? But no.
Bro, at the new of the school year, I live at a university, my wife, the whole deal. They changed the internet, and this thing has just slowed down to a crawl, and I'm hating life. Okay, we got 3 minutes to wrap this up. Here's where I'm standing on this. Since October 14th, King of Pro Wrestling, they've been hot-shotting the Zack Sabre Jr. legitimacy. He beat Naito. He beat Sonata. He's about to beat Shingo Takagi. These are all three of the most recent IWGP champions that he can get a crack out in the next near future. That's basically to say he's got the win. He's better than a bunch of former champions. This all just feels like elementary towards me to build him up as strongly as possible going into Wrestle Kingdom. I am so sorry for the terrible bad internet connection that got us to this point. But that's all I wanted to say.
The only other thing we have before we wrap things up here is Historic Crossover 2 coming up November 17th, also at the Edion Arena, same place Power Struggle will be. We got some news this past week. Suzu Suzuki, who has accepted the challenge of Great-O-Khan, and she has accepted. And then they had their whole thing, Jeremy. I don't know if you saw the press conference. Suzu Suzuki came out. Mm-hmm. Great-O-Khan was pleased to see her. Remember, before Suzu got to Stardom, she did a lot of hardcore stuff. She wrestled Jun Kasai at Korakuen Hall once and did the whole death match against Jun. So she's ready for this. And when they went to reveal their stipulations, Great-O-Khan simply took his little card and his marker and threw it away and said, you choose, Suzu, whatever you want. So she wants a hardcore match. So that is going to be Suzu Suzuki and the Great-O-Khan in a hardcore match. Like I said, Suzu's done deathmatch stuff before she got into Stardom, so she'll be fine. I think she'll know exactly what she's doing. And let's take a look at the rest of that card here, which I have up here. Let's see where. Yes, here we go. We also announced a mixed 8-man tag, or an 8-person tag match, I should say. And this one, frankly, Jeremy, does make me nervous. So we have on one side the Stars and Hantai group. So this is Saya Ida and Hanan from Stars. So these are the ultimate baby faces, Stars and Hantai, right? Taguchi and Tanahashi. So you have Tanahashi, Taguchi, Hanan, and Saya Ida. On the other side, the biggest heel groups. So you have Saya Kamatani and Natsuko Tora from the Hate group. And then you have Drilla Maloney and, God help us all, Gabriel Kidd from the War Dogs over here. I'm not going to feel okay about this one until this is over with. And just the reason is Gabe Kidd has been reckless with his opponents in a couple of days. It's been a few months. But he has pretty seriously injured a couple of people, and now you're going to put him in a match with Saida and Hanan. who, I mean, Saeed is built well. She's strong. She's a power lifter and all that. Hanan is tall and a bit lanky, and I'm worried for Hanan's safety in this one a little bit because Gabe gets reckless.
That's
my thought on this.
I'm going to enjoy you and Scotty wrestling, talking the preview part of this one, because we can really delve in deep when he comes to the preview with us.
And of course, the rest of it, we mentioned the hardcore match there. But again, Suzu knows how to work these, and there are ways. In some ways, if you work a hardcore match, that you're in pretty decent shape. There's not a whole lot of wrestling in one of those. It's but then you have the mixed tag, which is Natsupoi and Taichi against Tekla and Clark Connors. We've already talked about that one. We have Zack Sabre Jr. and Micah taking on Starlight Kid and El Desperado. That's going to be fantastic. That's like a can't miss. And then we also learned that we will get an IWGP women's title match, Momo Watanabe from the Hate Group and one of the Ultimate Heel faction, challenging Mayu Iwatani. And it's her 8th defense of the IWGP women's title. I don't know. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. There are big shows to come where things like that can happen, including one that's on January 3rd. They have their big. They have a big start. Their biggest show of the year, Dream Queendom, is the 29th of December coming up. So there are major start. You could, but there are major Stardom shows to come before that whole Mayu Iwatani contract thing comes up. And whether or not she goes to Marigold and follows Rossy Ogawa, all that stuff is what we're going to talk about with Scott E. Wrestling when he joins us for the preview of this one. But that's what we have for Historic Crossover at the moment.
All right. Get us out of here, Steven.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for watching us live. Thanks, everybody who are listening on the podcast feed. We really appreciate your time, as always. We had fun kind of blowing through things quick here. I hope everyone enjoys their Halloween and eat a lot of candy. You should anyway. So don't forget Power Bombshells with Jeremy and Mel. We'll be back on Sunday. You have the Dynamite show and all that. Stay with us here on the Fight Game Media schedule. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Steven Conway. This has been Speaking of Strong Style. We'll be right back here next week to talk about Power Struggle and everything that's happened since. We will talk to you again real soon.
Brush your teeth. Avoid the diabetes, please, and thank you.